Hi, welcome to Common Knowledge. I'm Rachel Zagaroli, and today with us is Karen Stewart. Karen is a Novi attorney, and she specializes in estate planning and probate matters. She has over 20 years of experience, and Karen also gives free consultations to older adults once a month at the Meadowbrook Activity Center, and has been doing so for over 10 years, which we truly appreciate because there's a lot of our older adults that have utilized your service. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'd also
Glad
like
to be here.
Good. I'd also like to welcome Tracy Ringel, and
Hi
Tracy
there.
is our communication specialist for the city of Novi. So welcome to you.
Thank you, thank you.
We see every day the importance of the estate planning and probate problems. So today let's discuss how to make sure we're ready before the problems begin. There's I hear a lot of stories about probate and making sure that everything is taken care of. So why don't we talk about a little bit about that?
Okay.
What is the difference between a last will and testament and a revocable living trust?
Okay.
Yeah, those are big ones.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, I hear often, I have a will, so that means I don't have probate of my estate. Is that correct? No, that's not correct. Actually, if you have a will and you have assets that go out under your will, then that is your ticket to the probate court. If your will passes assets that you have in your own name alone, that aren't joint with anyone, that don't have a beneficiary designation, or aren't held in trust. So that's what a will passes, and your will gets probated.
Oh.
Right. If you have things in a revocable living trust, this is a trust that you can set up during your lifetime while you're living. That's why it's called a living trust. You are the trustee of your trust, and you're also the beneficiary of your trust during your lifetime. So you would retitle assets into your name as trustee of your trust, and you would manage them for the benefit of yourself. And anything you get into your trust while you're living doesn't have to go through the probate court upon your death. So that's the biggest thing, is
So
the
making sure you
avoidance
put
of
everything
probate.
through that process.
Yes,
Putting
right.
it through the trust so that it's part of the trust.
I also see people who have these beautiful trusts in place, but they haven't done any of the funding, the moving the assets into the trust and naming the trust as beneficiary on life insurance and things like that.
I think I better come and see you because, boy, I think we have most everything, but I'm not sure we have everything properly like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's a good thing that we're doing all of this. What are the advantages of establishing a trust?
Okay, well, we already talked about avoiding probate.
Right.
Another good thing that a trust can do for you, especially if you're elderly, if the time comes when you become incapacitated and you can't handle your own finances, then you name a successor trustee to take over and manage the trust still for your benefit. And that person doesn't need to go to the probate court and be appointed your conservator in order to handle your assets. It can all be done in a private manner.
Yes, I was my mother's. I took care of all her things like that, and you were telling me too about now you're your parents.
Well, they had just shipped me some paperwork. They sent in the mail some paperwork with some flags to sign here, sign here, sign here, and it was their durable power of attorney for their medical wishes. So we had done that, and they're in the process. They're in their mid-60s, and they're in the process of starting to look at all of their finances and assets and
Good for them.
beneficiaries and all that good stuff.
That's a great time to do it.
Yeah, I mean they had some before, but now they're really, really looking at it before they retire, which is coming in the next 12 months or so.
Before you get elderly and
It's harder to
now
make
they're
those
capable
decisions.
and they're not, nothing's imminent, so they're calm about it and can think it through and get everything in place and have the energy to do that. So it's a great time.
Right, and it was nice. Both my sister and I have a part of it, so we're both in there. They trust us, I guess I would say. So moving forward on that thought, how do you pick someone if you've got multiple children or or you don't? What's your suggestion for choosing someone to be your beneficiary, be your designee?
Well, and the I call it a patient advocate designation, just so you don't confuse power of attorney for finances and power of attorney for health care.
Sure.
I just call the power of attorney for health care a patient advocate designation, because you're appointing a patient advocate to make your medical decisions. if 2 doctors certify you're unable to make your own.
Okay.
And that's where you give the power to terminate life support. And I have people make choices about gifts of organs and whether they would want feeding tubes if they're terminal and irreversible. So we walk through those things. And some of the considerations for picking a patient advocate is the person local? Could they be there in time?
Very
Right,
important.
yeah.
Yes, right. And are they strong enough to make those kinds of decisions?
Yeah. It's
Would
hard.
they wimp out if
Yeah.
if they had to make a decision on,
It's probably one of the
terminating
hardest
life
things
support?
ever. Was my mother's. And
Yeah,
it is very difficult.
It's tough.
You have to be very strong to be able to do that.
but it does help if you know their wishes.
Yes.
Okay, I
Yes.
know this is what she would want, so that makes it easier on
It
you
does
to
make
do
well.
that.
It does. It makes it easier, but it's still hard. So you have
Yes,
to
it
pick
is.
someone who you
You're
really
dealing
trust.
with loss and yes.
How about guardians of children? How do you pick someone like that? What do you look for?
I think you should look for someone with the same philosophies that you have on how to raise children. Again, depending on their age, if they're teenagers and you want them to stay in the same high school, maybe you'd want to pick somebody that was local. Otherwise, most people probably look to family if they have good family members. Sometimes not. That can be tough. And then you also have to think through, too, if you appoint your sister and her husband as guardians, what about if they divorce or
True.
something happens to your sister? Then what should be? So I try to write it all in. It's like putting a puzzle together.
Right, sounds like multiple
If
pieces.
this,
Right.
then that. If this, then that. Maybe if they both can't do it, you'd prefer they'd stay with a couple, so you move them to someone else. Or maybe you don't mind if one
Right.
person raises them.
Sure.
Yeah.
What about the agent under durable power of attorney? Is that different from what we've been?
That is very different from making medical decisions. That's to handle finances. And if you have a trust, it would cover
Include all of
things
that.
that are outside of the trust. Your successor trustee handles what's in the trust. Your power of attorney. For instance, you don't retitle an IRA into your trust. You name beneficiaries, but you'd still need someone to manage the investments within that IRA. So your agent would use the power of attorney to do that.
Maybe
So
we need a presentation on this.
I do. I was thinking, so a trust and a power of attorney is something to have
You need
together.
both.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
There's 4 basic documents in an estate plan. It's a will, and that's where you name guardians. And if you have a trust, your will says, I leave everything to my trust.
Okay.
Then there's the trust, there's power of attorney and patient advocate designation.
Okay.
And that whole package should keep you out of probate and take care of you if you become incapacitated and plan for after your death.
So the executor of the will would be a different person?
Yep, that is the person who would probate your will.
So you'd have all of those.
And maybe you have a trustee that's not local, but to probate your will, you'd want to pick somebody local if they're going to Oakland County Probate Court or Wayne County.
Okay.
Make it easier on them.
Well, what is probate, and why do we always hear that we need to avoid it? We
Yeah.
always hear that
Yeah,
question.
you don't want to go to probate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you explain the process?
Sure.
If something does go, or why does it go?
Sure.
You've talked about it a little bit today, but why would it
Right.
might go? But then, if it does, what does that mean?
Yeah.
If you have assets in your own name, whether you have a will or not, those have to go through the probate court. And if you don't have a will, then there's a statute that says how your property flows to your family. And so there's got to be a petition filed with the court to appoint the executor, personal representative, and they have to, and there's filing fees for that. Usually you have to hire an attorney because there's different types of probate
Okay.
and you have to figure out what to do
Oh,
and all the
sounds like a
forms.
nightmare.
It's very form driven. There's a claims notice that has to be published in the legal news. And then creditors have 4 months from that date to file claims against the estate. You have to file an inventory and pay an inventory fee
So you end up
based
paying
on
a
the
lot
value.
of fees out of pocket.
You can,
to go
yes.
through that process where it could have
Right.
been handled
Right.
ahead of time and avoided.
Right. Yeah, all that can be avoided.
So when a probate has to appoint an executor, do they look to your family or do they look to an accountant? Do they what happens?
It depends on who you appoint in your will. That's going to be the first
But if you
person.
didn't have a will,
If you don't have a will, then there's certain priority, your spouse and,
okay.
and children, if you don't have
Sure.
any siblings.
sure.
But you can get waivers and consents from all the beneficiaries to have someone act.
So another step in the process.
Yes, right.
Lots of steps.
Right.
Is there any time that it's beneficial?
I can't really think of any.
No, I wouldn't think so. I hear that all the time about probate being a nightmare.
The only time probate may be beneficial is if you're incapacitated and you can't handle your finances.
Okay.
And there's no one that you trust. You don't have any family or good friends that could handle it. So appointing a conservator for you that's overseen by the court could be a good idea.
Sure. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, we always get lots of questions about, what do I
Yes.
do? How do I handle this? And usually, we just say, call Karen.
For 10 years, I've have a steady supply of people every month.
Right. Well, there are
Come in with
so many
questions.
questions. And,
Yes.
and of course, we can't answer those questions, but that's why we look to people that have that expertise and the information to give. So we certainly appreciate that. I think
You're
maybe a
welcome.
presentation is in order. I think
I
we have to-
do dig a little deeper into that because I know I learned a few things in our short time here, but I also learned a lot of things I don't know anything about. I
Yeah.
need to know more about. So
Right.
Well, come and sit down with me.
Yeah,
I'll
you
give
know
you a free
what?
half hour. I give anybody a free half hour, whether it's at the senior center or in my office.
Okay.
Because
Consultation.
especially the elderly,
Yeah.
they have to worry about being preyed upon. So if they can
We're
come,
always very careful of that.
if they can come and just check you out, see how they like you, and there's no pressure, it really helps a lot.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we really appreciate you coming in, even though there's a lot of things that we talked about that I still don't quite understand the total.
We scratched
picture.
the surface here,
Yeah,
didn't
we
we?
just did that, but that lets people know that they can make appointments with you and get all of the information that's needed.
Yes. And you can check me out on my website,
Oh.
customestateplans, plural.com.
Okay.
Customestateplans.com.
Well, we
Will do.
definitely will do that, and we'll put some information up there. And I'm sure you're going to get more phone calls now that this has been on and stuff.
Oh, I
So,
look forward to it.
Good.
Karen, thank you very much for coming in
You're
today
welcome.
and
Thanks for
trying to
having me.
explain some of these questions. These are the questions that we get all the time, so it's always good. And
Yeah.
Tracy, of course, thank
Thank
you
you.
for doing that.
Sure.
Thank you for watching Common Knowledge. I know there's a lot of information here, but it's a step to understanding what you should do and what you need to have on hand. So if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call and make an appointment with Karen, and I'm sure she can answer all those questions. Thanks for watching Common Knowledge, and see you soon.